The Jingu boss fight. The second to last boss fight in Yakuza 1 and Yakuza Kiwami. The biological father of Haruka boss fight. Yumi's husband for like 2 months boss fight. The Kiwami version of the Jingu boss fight is pretty notorious for being one of the harder boss fights in the entire series, but you never really see anyone talking about the original boss fight in the first game. Because I don't think many people, especially nowadays, have actually played the first Yakuza game. And that's not their fault. It's because the first Yakuza game is kind of hard to play. You either have to emulate it or you have to get the Japan exclusive remasters for the PS3 and Wii U. Anyway, the point is, not many people know that the original Jingu boss fight is easy as fuck. Seriously, you just have to spam square and you're basically done with it. So when I played the first Yakuza game, I remember thinking, damn, what the hell went wrong for this boss fight to be so hard in Kiwami? And that's exactly what this video was about. The factors that contributed to making the Kiwami Jingu boss fight so much harder than it needed to be. The first factor is pretty simple, the enemy aggression. In Kiwami, the enemies want you fucking dead. Especially on Legend, they just won't stop attacking you and coming after you. A lot of Yakuza 1 is also group fights, so you put a bunch of angry guys and one Kiryu, and then bam, 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 you just can't really do anything. How does this relate to the Jingu boss fight? Well, he's got a bunch of guys with knives and guns, and one Kiryu. So when you're fighting Jingu,
Step off! Step out! Shit! They jumping me! They jumping me! Save your boy!
in the second phase of Jingu's boss fights when he's got 2 guards with him, the aggression applies to them too. They won't stop attacking you, and you have to constantly be moving or else they're gonna stab you and you're gonna get staggered. The enemies are just super aggressive, and their AI is a lot smarter than it was in the first Yakuza game, which makes it a lot more difficult for Kiryu to beat them up easily. Like I said earlier, you could just spam square in the original boss fight and basically be done with it because the AI doesn't really have a way to counter you. But this doesn't really apply to Kiwami because you have to be smart about what you do, and thinking in a fighting game, that's so lame. But really, the enemy aggression just makes this boss fight a lot more punishing. You have to be constantly moving or else you're done for. You lose all your momentum, your heat is gone, and you're just laying on the ground like a dumbass. The enemy aggression isn't the only thing that makes this boss fight harder. If you have it just by itself, this boss fight is fine. The Jingu boss fight is made difficult because there's a lot of factors contributing to it. Think about this boss fight like a sandwich. Having just bread isn't a sandwich, but then you start putting other ingredients and bam, that's a sandwich. But once you take off the bread, it's not a sandwich anymore. It's all of these factors contributing to make the boss fight a lot harder than it actually needs to be. So what's the next factor? The structure of the boss fight itself. Jingu has 2 phases. One where you fight him and his minions around the fountain, and then the second phase where you fight him and his guards on the helipad. In the original game, you get to fight Jingu himself before he runs away. You basically get a free chance to damage him and make him lose one of his 2 health bars. However, in Kiwami, this never happens. The only way you could damage Jingu in phase 1 is by picking up a gun and shooting him. There's no choice. You just have to shoot at him to do damage. Otherwise, he has 2 full health bars in the next phase. Instead of fighting him, you get to fight more minions. And let's talk about these minions. They are annoying to fight. Combined with the enemy aggression being turned up to like 111%, they will just never stop coming after you. Towards the end of the first phase in Kiwami, there are also more enemies. You can tell these guys aren't supposed to be here because no other enemies spawn. It's just these gunners. That's it. Anyway, back to Jingu. His phase 2 structure also slightly changes. In the original game, he's a lot more focused with running away from you. However, in Kiwami, he tries to attack you, which doesn't really matter and allows you to get more hits in. He also has a new weapon. He throws grenades for some reason, and makes it a lot harder because of these 2 guards that he has with him. Most of the difficulty of this boss fight comes from these 2 guards, because they are annoying as shit to fight. Oh, have fun being stabbed over and over and over again. Have fun trying to knock these guys out and getting blown up and laying on the ground. And these guys won't stop chasing you. When you're trying to do damage to Jingu in the boss fight, they just keep coming after you. It is ridiculous. It's like playing Subway Surfers. The guy just never stops chasing. What makes this boss fight even more difficult is that if you knock these guys out, they come back stronger, which doesn't happen in the original game. In the original game, they stay without heat mode every time they revive. However, in Kiwami, after you knock them down once, they revive with heat mode, and they become even more on crack. They're super fast, they have blades that stun you, and they just never stop trying to attack you and kill you. Combine this with Jingu's grenades and his gun, then this boss fight becomes hell. While you're trying to knock these guys out, you're gonna get knocked off your feet. And then, when they revive into heat mode and you're trying to get Jingu, they're just gonna keep stabbing you over and over again. And then when you try to fight them, you're gonna get hit with the bullet and knocked down. You know how just a few minutes ago I mentioned that you don't get to fight Jingu in the first phase? Well, that makes the second phase of this boss fight a lot longer and drawn out than it actually is. In the original game, Jingu runs away after you damaged him to half health, but you never get to do this in Kiwami. He just runs away like a little bitch from the start. And then once you get to him in the second phase, you have to do 2 times as much damage now, because you never got to damage him in the first place. This makes the boss fight a lot longer than it actually needs to be. He's not supposed to have that much health. Why the fuck did he run away like a little bitch?
Upon editing this video, I made a few discoveries. First of all, doing damage to Jingu before the second phase doesn't even matter because he magically heals his health back. Second of all, you can't grab him, unlike in the original game where you can grab them, which makes it harder to actually do damage to Jingu because that's a whole part of Kiryu's kit that's just gone and useless. And another thing that pads out this fight even more is that you can't actually beat Jingu until you've knocked down both of his guards in Kiwami. In the original game, you could beat him regardless, it doesn't matter if you knock down the colonels or not, but in Kiwami, you have to knock them down at least once. Focusing on Jingu just leaves him on 1 HP and you can't beat him.
It's a bunch of just stuff going on and you have to be smart in Yakuza. Being smart in Yakuza, that's fucking lame. The next contributing factor to the difficulty of this boss fight also has to do with this. It's Kiryu's reactions to blades and bullets. A majority of the enemies in this boss fight in Phase 1 and in Phase 2 use blades and guns. From a design point of view, you would want the player to be a little bit resistant to blades and guns, or else these boss fights become hell. And yes, I mean boss fights with an S, plural, because there are 2 major boss fights in Yakuza 1 that involve an enemy with guns and minions, the Arase boss fight and this Jingu boss fight, which are both hell for the same reason. Kiryu cannot take bullets. This isn't really a problem in Yakuza 1. Here's how he reacts to bullets. It takes multiple bullets shot at him at a single time to knock him down, which is good. That means he could tank more bullets in the Arase and Jingu boss fights. However, in Kiwami, every single style reacts differently to bullets, and this also changes depending on your heat level. Brawler without heat, you get knocked down. Brawler with heat, you get knocked down. Rush with and without heat, you get knocked down regardless. Beast without heat, you get knocked down. Beast with heat, you get knocked down. Beast with heat and blocking, you don't get knocked down. Dragon without heat, you get knocked down. Dragon with heat, you get knocked down. Every time you get hit by a bullet or a knife, you're just knocked down and you can't really do anything about it. What makes this even more annoying is that Kiryu is really dramatic when he gets knocked down in Kiwami. When he gets shot, he enters an animation before hitting the ground and then being able to get back up. When he gets stabbed too many times, then he falls down really dramatically like this. The enemies being smarter and having roid rage. The structure of the boss fight changing to be a lot more drawn out. Kiryu not being able to take a blade or a bullet to save his life. All of these factors contribute to making the Jingu boss fight in Kiwami a lot harder than it was in the original game. This difficulty also gives it a unique feeling that makes it a lot more distinct than the Yakuza 1 boss fight. That's exactly what Kiwami does. It's not an exact remake, it's a whole new game that gives a different feeling than the original game did, whether it be through story or through gameplay. You can play this boss fight and go, yep, this is definitely a Kiwami boss fight. The difficulty is for some reason really high, there's padding for time, and you can tell it was a masochist that made this boss fight. Anyway, that's all I got today. Bye.
That's right.